So, in this video, I will be attempting to predict the events that will happen in The Boys' final season. The Boys is a show that aims for shock value and surprise factors, so I wouldn't be surprised if all of these predictions are wrong. So subscribe to be updated when I make a video in about 2 months from now to see how wrong I was exactly. For about 7 years, I've been watching The Boys, rewatching The Boys, making my friends rewatch The Boys, and then rewatching The Boys with them again. The point is, I've rewatched The Boys a lot.
That's really something.
And I cannot wait to see the awesome ending that this show has. Please don't be a trash ending. Please don't be a trash ending. No! Anyways, I hate vague predictions, so I'm going to try to be as specific as I can. All right, let's get into it. All right, let's get the obvious one out of the way. If this was a bingo sheet, A-Train would be the free space. I think a great ending would be if A-Train lived, him and Hughie both survived and became friends. I've always imagined like a scene of them at like a barbecue, reminiscing with their families about how they saved the world from Homelander. That being said, anyone who's watched this show knows that's not how it's going to end. We're not getting a happy ending for those two. I think A-Train is going to die. He'll probably sacrifice himself to Homelander in order to help his comrades escape at some point. Or maybe he just gets killed off for shock value. No matter how you slice it, this runner has reached his finish line. Homelander is the main villain of The Boys, and his defeat is basically cosmically ordained. However, defeat does not mean death, and I don't actually think Homelander will die. However, if he does die, it won't be until he loses his powers. This is Homelander's biggest fear. The show will either end with Homelander powerless in a cell, or Homelander will lose his powers, get them back, and then die. Either way, he will lose his powers at some point in this season. How will he lose his powers exactly? I can hear you thinking. That's right, I can hear thoughts. Homelander is his own worst enemy, and him bringing in Soldier Boy is basically sure to backfire on him like everything else in his life. It fits within the narrative of The Boys that Homelander will make a decision that will ultimately backfire on him, and we're at the final season, so he's about out of free passes. It's time for the consequences of Homelander's actions to finally catch up with him. In the first draft of this script, I thought it would be a big twist that he would either be experimenting with Compound V or trying to decrease the rate of his aging with V1 because they set that up in season 4, and I thought I was really smart for thinking of that. But then they just released a whole trailer basically confirming it, and I had to rewrite this whole script. Luckily, although V1 is going to be Homelander's goal this season, it won't be the only plot being cooked up by Homelander and Sage. Last season, we watched the two of them take over the White House, and when Sage's plan is fully revealed, we will get to see what they use that legislative power for. We can see a vial on the ground in a shot of the trailer, so we can assume Homelander will get to take the V1 at some point and become immune to aging. However, I don't exactly know how well that's going to work out for him. He might just find himself imprisoned forever, a fate worse than death actually. And a fate that he escaped a long time ago, back when he was still inside Vought's laboratory. Homelander might have some big ambitions this season, but he might want to play a little defense. Because I think this season, he's going to be hit with something that has been way long overdue. Because, drumroll please, the Flight 37 video. I think that's finally going to get released. They've been building up a Homelander crash out since season 2, and when that video gets released, we'll finally get to know what that looks like. In terms of Homelander's defeat, we can talk more about the specifics of that when we go over a different character. Sage is a hard character to predict. It's entirely possible that everything surrounding her is a misdirect. I wouldn't be surprised if by episode 7, it's revealed that everything that took place during the season was all a part of Sage's secret plan the whole time, no matter how impossible it would be to actually predict. Similar to last season, where they portrayed Sage's plan as assassinating Singer, only for that to be a misdirect as well. So we're going to keep this nice and simple. Sage seems to not like humans and believes them to be inferior to supes, So I believe Sage's plan is ultimately going to be to breed out humanity with soups in order to eventually create a soup master race.
I could cure cancer, reverse global warming, but what's the point? Humans are animals.
How she plans to achieve this is unclear, but if I had to imagine, I think Sage will be working with Vought to develop a new Compound V formula based on V1 so that they can mass produce it and it won't have any negative kinks like normal V does. The plan will then be to make Homelander, make the president, require everyone to be jabbed with the new Compound V formula at birth. And of course, this will allow the writers to make more COVID jokes like they did in Season 3. I think this plan would also fit well with her goals being aligned with her former boy toy, Godolkin, in Season 2 of that show, before he went a little crazy towards the end. I feel like this is the direction the show will go. It turns Homelander's motto of "Make America Super" from being a motto into more like a prophecy, as he will then use his presidential powers to make all future Americans, well, super. Before that big reveal, there will be a series of misdirects, and by episode 6 or 7, it will be revealed that pretty much everything that has transpired throughout the season, with Vought and Homelander and all their public appearances, was actually a big misdirect, and it was all part of Sage's plan all along. She probably still will lose in the end, but if she does lose, it will be because of Homelander's ego, more than like the boys themselves. However, just because I think Sage is going to lose, I actually don't think she's going to die. It's possible to keep her around as like the villain for Gen V Season 3 or a villain of that show. If there is no Gen V Season 3, then it's probably more likely Sage is going to die. But if there is, I think she'll probably be defeated but not die. Sage is smart enough to have a backup plan when Homelander predictably loses. However, while Sage is smart enough, her backup plan will be thwarted by our next character. If you know anything about the boys' comic books, you'll know that Stan Edgar is basically the stand-in for James Stillwell, the main villain of the comics, and I think Stan's ending will mirror his. In the comics, James Stillwell is the CEO of Vought, and his personality is pretty much exactly like Stan's.
My original intent was to make you an offer, Marie. Provide safety and comfort in exchange for your loyal service once I regain control of Vought, which I will.
Okay.
But if Thomas Godolkin is indeed alive, the answers to controlling Cypher, to controlling all soups, could lie inside his head.
Stan wants control of Vought, and he wants control of his product back, the soups. And I think one of those goals is definitely in his future. He will either regain control of Vought or start a new pharmaceutical company capitalizing on a new superhero team. Now you might say Edgar wouldn't want a new superhero team, but I think him starting a new superhero team to profit in the hole that Homelander has left would be a good business decision. At the end of the day, the real villain of the boys is the system that created Homelander and the rest of the soups. Homelander may be a symptom, but Edgar is one of the diseases. No one, not even people who helped create the system, like Edgar, are safe from it. Even though he doesn't like the idea of soups as celebrities, he will be forced into starting a new superhero team because that's what the market wants. Of course, someone will need to be blamed for Homelander's fall, and if you go by the comics, Sage might be that character. Her name is Jessica Bradley, and from what I've just described happens is something that happens to Jessica Bradley in the comics, where after Homelander's takeover of the White House, James blames it all on Jessica, the current sitting CEO. But if the boys is known for one thing, it's misdirection. Even though they're setting up Sage and Jessica as one in terms of circumstance, they couldn't be more different in terms of personality. That being said, there is a character that fills this role a lot better, Ashley. Ashley and comic book Jessica have similar personalities in many ways. They're both even seen pulling out their own hair, funny enough. Since Sage is acting CEO, I think it is her that Edgar will try to pin the blame onto, but she will probably see this coming and make Ashley the new CEO before this, obfuscating the blame onto her. I think in order for the ending of this story to feel whole, Sage will have to lose. Even if she doesn't die, losing control of Vought is a good way to keep her around for potential spin-offs while ending the current series of events. So yeah, in the first 2 episodes of this season, if they have Ashley being propped up by Sage as the new CEO, just know Ashley is going to get screwed over like Jessica did. I think Stan Edgar will also be there to supply the boys with one last shot of Temp V. And I think we can actually take a guess on what powers the other 2 members of the team will get. When Butcher took Compound V, he got laser eyes like Homelander, a soup he obviously hates. And Hughie is something similar. He got teleportation, a transportation power similar to A-Train's. So with that being said, I think Frenchie will get powers similar to Lamplighter, and I think Marvin will get powers similar to Soldier Boy. Frenchie is seen frequently wearing like his little welding goggles, and I think that would really fit with his theoretical new fire powers, but I don't think he's going to really do much with them. I think Mother's Milk is the one who will go down swimming. I think MM will ultimately die fighting Soldier Boy, not how he dies in the comics. He is definitely going to die because he was given a choice to step away from the boys and go with his family. He chose not to do that. Narratively, I don't think MM can have a happy ending because he's already made that choice. I think it will be fitting for Marvin to die to Soldier Boy. I mean, in season 3, he said so many times that the stress from Soldier Boy would kill him alone. But more than that, I think Marvin would sacrifice himself to stop Soldier Boy from killing like Hughie or one of the members of his team. It would be like he got a second chance to save his family from Soldier Boy, something he couldn't do when he was younger and has haunted him his whole life. It's even the cause of his OCD. I think Homelander's decision to release Soldier Boy will lead to a rift between him and Sage. Something tells me that Sage isn't the type of person Soldier Boy will take orders from, and Sage will ultimately be against Soldier Boy's revival. Although Soldier Boy does like Bill Cosby, so Soldier Boy's fate is probably the hardest to predict. Generally, I think he will live. I'm only assuming this though because he has a prequel series coming up, but that doesn't necessarily mean he will live. Actually, as I'm editing this, I'm going to switch my guess. I actually think he is going to die. I'm not really sure how it's going to happen. It's narratively unclear what will happen to Soldier Boy. He seemed to be in the right during season 3, like season 4 Butcher, by the end of it, seemed to agree like, okay, yeah, Ryan, Homelander, they all have to go. So it's unclear like where Soldier Boy sits on like the morality spectrum. Now that it looks like he's on Team Homelander though, I doubt both him and Homelander will live. I'll lock in my prediction, say Soldier Boy bites the dust and Homelander will be the one to live. I'm not confident about Soldier Boy dying though. I do think he is going to be the one to depower Homelander. They introduced that as one of his powers for a reason. If my prediction about Temp V is correct though, MM might get similar powers to Soldier Boy. I don't think he will get the depower beam though. I think what's more likely to happen in that regard is MM will sacrifice himself to redirect a depower beam, maybe at Homelander. But we'll have to see where that goes, I guess. So yeah, that's about all I have to say about Soldier Boy. He's a wild card. There's a lot going on with the future of this franchise, and note that if Gen V comes back for a 3rd season, he is more likely to survive. We actually don't even know the specifics with his own spin-off show, the prequel series Vought Rising, so who even knows what's going to happen there. Starlight will likely survive the events of the boys. One of Hughie's arcs is that he always wanted to save Robin, his old girlfriend, so I don't think Starlight will die if Hughie is alive. The smear campaign that's been brought on by Homelander as a result of President Singer's arrest will likely make her unable to hold any mainstream popularity, and she'll have to go into an early retirement. I think Starlight will have a lot of incentive to go into early retirement, especially because of what I think is going to happen with Hughie. To the surprise of absolutely zero people, after Homelander and Soldier Boy are defeated, Butcher will become the final threat of the show, not happy that Soups are being left alive. Butcher will ultimately kill Frenchie and Kimiko before this, as they will try to stop him from using the virus, and ultimately they will fail to stop Butcher. I think Butcher will kill Frenchie and Kimiko. Butcher will try to release a stronger version of the virus mentioned in the trailer, and he'll try to do this outside the restaurant that he mentioned to Hughie, the one that his brother liked. I don't think Butcher will succeed in using the virus this way. I do think the virus will have a use this season that we'll talk about when we lightning round some of the minor characters and their fates. But back to Hughie and Butcher, I think this will be a scenario where both Billy and Hughie die. Hughie will kill Butcher with the help of Temp V, and Temp V will ultimately kill Hughie, but not immediately. The story will end with Hughie being alive, and he'll be together with Starlight, just like they were in the comics, but it'll be more on a somber note. Starlight will know that Hughie doesn't have that much longer to live, maybe like a year, and that'll give them enough time to have a child and enjoy their days together. That'll probably be incentive for Starlight to take an early retirement, on top of the fact that her reputation is smeared. I think this is going to happen because one of the lines that stood out to me in season 2 is when Grace was talking to MM, and she says something along the lines of, "At the end of the day, all you have left is your family."
He's right, of course. You should listen to him.
I am?
Go back to your wife and daughter.
Nah. I'd just be putting them in more danger.
Yes. The self-martyring bullshit of the special ops soldier. I'll get you all on a flight to Nicaragua. No one sees you again.
When this is done, I'll take you up on
But
that.
that's the point, Marvin. It's never done. You just let go. No justice for your father, no revenge against Vought. You get nothing except your family. Go and never come back. I wish I had.
I think that's the note we'll leave Starlight and Hughie on. They will mention that it's unfair that Edgar got away with everything, but they'll ultimately have to accept this reality for what it is, and going forward to make the most of whatever time they have left. And last and certainly not least, we have Ryan, one of the most important characters in the show. Ryan has been built up to stop Homelander since season 2. And surprise, surprise, like everything else in The Boys, things won't go exactly as planned. I think Ryan will definitely fight Homelander at some point. That's definitely happening. We can see laser marks on Homelander's suit in some of the trailers, but whether he actually kills Homelander is another story. I can see two situations playing out. Situation 1 is where Ryan will fight Homelander after Homelander already has taken the V1. He'll keep him busy enough for him to be depowered, and after that, the only way Homelander can maybe get his powers back is if Ryan does a blood transfer with him, or a V transfer with him. Ryan will, however, reject him, in which case this will make Homelander go insane before he gets beaten and restrained and sent to jail, or some secret CIA prison that he will never escape from. Situation 2 is where Homelander loses his powers before encountering Ryan. However, Homelander will use the V1 to get his powers back and become stronger than ever. In this scenario, I do believe he ultimately gets killed by Ryan. However, I don't think this scenario is actually going to play out based on the most recent trailer. We can see Homelander using his powers in the woods at night, and in the same area, he seems to get his hands on the V1 and takes it. So I don't think this scenario will actually end up playing out. The cruel irony, of course, being, if Homelander is defeated and imprisoned, he will likely be ageless because of the V1, which means he could be incarcerated forever. It would be exactly what Homelander hated most about his childhood, being trapped in the bad room, unable to escape. Once Homelander is beaten, Ryan will probably go inside with Stan Edgar and Zoe, becoming the new face of their superhero team at Stan Edgar's new superhero company. Ryan will have a clean slate in the eyes of the public after he defeated Homelander. Going into a potential Gen V Season 3, this will kind of draw new battle lines between Stan Edgar and Ryan versus Marie and the other Gen V soups. The Gen V cast feels like a red herring. Starlight's plan will most likely be to use Marie to defeat Homelander, but this ultimately won't happen. There's much more setup for Ryan or Butcher or one of the other boys helping to defeat Homelander. While Marie will certainly help with that, they won't be the ones to lead to Homelander's downfall. It would kind of ruin any future stories with the Gen V cast and Marie if Marie just straight up beats Homelander. It wouldn't surprise me if a scenario plays out where Homelander tries to recruit Marie because they're cousins and their family, and that's really important to Homelander. But Marie uses that as a way to kind of sneak or conduct a stealth mission trying to get other Starlighters into Vought Tower. What probably will happen is Gen V will go up against Teenage Kicks. You can see a Teenage Kicks truck in the trailer. In the comics, they're a superhero team of, well, teenagers, and I think they're mentioned in the show. I think A-Train was a member of Teenage Kicks, along with Sister Sage. Outside of some action scenes and maybe a couple plot points, I don't really see the Gen V cast doing a lot. Okay, we're going to do a quick lightning round of Deadpool for all the remaining characters that will either live or die.
Did somebody say Deadpool?
Not you, Deadpool. It's an actual Deadpool. Now get out of here.
In the Boys comics, uranium bullets are used to kill Supes at the White House. I think a similar fate awaits these Supes, but instead of uranium, it'll be a variant of the Supe virus laced on bullets, or administered in some other way. Anyways, let's get into the Deadpool. Alright, the minor antagonists, the Deep, Black Noir, Firecracker, they're probably dead, either by the Boys or by Homelander. As previously discussed, Billy Butcher, Mother's Milk, Frenchie, Kamiko, they're all probably going to die. And Hughie is basically marked for death on a later date because the Temp V will infect his brain like it did to Butcher. Stan Edgar, Ashley Barrett, Starlight, they are probably going to live. Homelander and Soldier Boy might live, but they might end up in prison. I actually think that Soldier Boy will die. Queen Maeve, if she comes back on the show, will die. And A-Train, yeah, that guy is dead. Ryan will probably live as well. And most of the Gen V cast will also live. The only one I could see dying is maybe Polarity, if Homelander goes to God U for some answers and ends up meeting Polarity and killing him. I could see Sage dying if Homelander is the one to kill her, like just unpredictable Homelander just kills her and she couldn't account for that, but I think most likely Sage will probably live. Thank you for listening to my little yap sesh in my corner of the internet. I guess we'll come back in about 2 months and see just how wrong I really was. Thank you for watching.